Hello, my name is Tina Parrish, and this is Tina Parrish Coaching. And this class is called Functional Movement. And the theme is Traveler's Exercises. And this is more of an intermediate class. I do have a beginner class if you want to watch that video. So how the class is broken down is the first half is length training. We want to work on the range of motion in particular joints as it affects how our muscles are structured. So we're really going to go for eccentric and kind of pull out these muscles for the first half. And of course, address what happens when you travel, which can be a lot of walking and a lot of sitting. So we're talking about the hips really being affected and even tightness of the chest as the body starts to hunch over. So we want to open up those parts. Once you've done that great length training for the first half hour of the class, you are ready to strength train. And that's where the core and the total body moves come in. And of course, we'll be doing moves on the more intermediate level that have to do and mimic with moves you might be doing as you travel, right? Rotating, lifting things, taking steps, all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're gonna go with the theme of a little bit wider stance. That's great for the hips. What's good for the hips is good for the back. And hopefully you've been up and moving around. As we actively age, it's really good to come out of the bed and move around for 2 hours before you watch this video or take any exercise so you can work out a little bit of stiffness. So if you've been doing that, it's time to see what your range is ready for in various planes. So we're gonna come forward, we're gonna kind of do a one and done here. And just see what you're ready for wide without rounding out the center of your back. So we've got a tabletop position or a half forward fold, and that's might be where you're good at. But if you slightly bend the knees, you might see that you're able to hip hinge even a little bit forward more without rounding out from the center of the back. You can rotate your shoulders back, you know, as if you're pulling up something. It's good to get that squeeze between the blades, but we're not looking for any rounding out here in the center or rounding out in the middle of the back. And see if you can hinge forward even a little bit more. Again, a little cheat sheet here is just to bend the knees. That's okay. You might have tight hands, especially if you're kind of been traveling, you know, you're walking a lot, you're using those hands. So it's normal for them to be tight. Now I want you to come up. We all come up a little bit differently. Some of us center our weight over and come all the way up. And there's your range coming forward. So now we're going to come back. So we're going to be opening up the front of the body and relying on the back of the body to hold us up, especially the glutes. So start with a bit of a glute activation. If you're having trouble feeling any kind of squeezing, put your feet together just a little bit closer. Roll your shoulders back. You can go to the last move, which is squeezing your blades. You can have your elbows bent, you can have them behind, it doesn't matter. You just want to get that feeling in there. The chest begins to open, you start to contract. And then go ahead and look up. Drop the tongue, drop the jaw. Soften your knees if you feel they're bothering you, and stretch out your toes. Feel your whole feet. And then take your time coming up. Again, it's a little different for everybody how you want to shift your back. You just major strengthening in your spine. So it's no different than you hold a weight lifted up, your bicep might be sore a little bit. You did some deep stretching to the front of the body. Excellent. So now we're coming on the sides, right? These are the ways that we move, whether we're traveling or just moving in our daily life. We come forward, we come back, we also come to the side. So let's start with a shift. What's it like to shift out? Are you okay with that? If you're not okay with the shift, you might want to begin with an elbow or shoulder lift. So you start spreading out the rib cage of the serratus. And then seeing if you can add on a bit of a stretch. And I'm going to lean as much as I feel comfortable into what's known as the frontal, even though it's the side frontal plane. It's up to you how much you want to lift up that arm. But make sure you're not coming forward, right? The body finds a way. If it can't feel that bilateral stretch, it might come forward and say that it's feeling it. We want to keep everything on the side. And then take your time shifting back. So what the spine is doing now, it's really contracting on one side, it's lengthening the other side. A lot of the E erector spinae, so that runs all the way down the spine. We just want to take our time with that. And then shift the opposite side. So remember the suggestions. We don't want to feel it in the hip. Maybe feel it in the rib cage and the shoulder, and then start to add the hip in there if you're okay with that. And fall into that plane. These nice bilateral stretches, they can help with our yoga for life classes, especially in the moon Namaskar or the moon salutations, as a lot of us in the bilateral plane. We're looking at triangle and doing some pyramid as well. Take your time coming up. You're stretching and you're strengthening as you come up and as you lean. Excellent. All right, one more plane here. So this is the rotational or the pivot plane. Pivot is a safer word when we talk about twisting or turning, right? So pivot and twisting, two ends of the spectrum. So let's start with the easy end. So that's the pivot. So you're feeling like a little asymmetrical action, a little staggered stance in the hips, but nothing on the spine. You're taking the spine with you as you face in these various directions. So you feel glute activation. That will be another theme today as we get into the strengthening, is using the glutes more along with that wider stance. And then so from the pivot, you start to go up the spectrum. Could you add rotation in the thoracic chest area? Got my pivot, got my rotation. And then we'll say that word for twist for last. So the pivot to the rotation, to really extending or twisting. Both sides. This is great. It also opens up the organs a little bit too. Digestively, this kind of twisting stuff works. All right, breathe in, breathe out. So we get those three planes, and then we're going to go into our traveler's stretches or traveler's exercises. So get your sturdy chair here without arms on the side. And since this is more of our intermediate, usually you bring your leg up to prop in this exercise, but I'm going to go with the progression. I'm going to extend out the leg. You don't have to do that. And I'm going to bring it the other. It just calls us to be a little bit more core aware when we don't have that propped. And you're going to draw same knee. You can go on top or you can go under, whatever you're comfortable with. Same knee to same armpit without rounding out the back or using the back of the chair. So we're going for the lumbar stretch. These are three key traveler exercises stretch. I'm doing in all my videos, all the workouts for the month. To just help you remember these, they can be done the second you wake up. They can be done after long walks or long sitting. So I'm going to extend the knee as I've got my range as high as it's going to go to the armpit. I'm going to keep that and extend the range, and it's not going to be straightened out because of the hand. But I'm going to go into that nerve flossing and move that long sciatic nerve, like glide or floss over the fascia on top of the muscles. And so the final move here, I'm going to cross over. Now you can prop up that knee. I'm going to go into almost like a yoga angle. That could be too high for people, so it's okay to bring that prop up. But again, we are talking about a little bit more of intermediate today. So I'm going to bring that up and hold that up and try and drop that knee. Getting into the deep outward rotators in the hips, these 6 smaller horizontal muscles. When they're tight, they can squeeze the sciatic nerve, especially the piriformis. Piriformis is one of the 6 deep outward rotators. Beautiful. Let's just hold this for a minute. Let's give it, yeah, exactly a minute. And let's go into the neck roll and the Pilates. And let's just turn the head side to side, as we do want to bring in neck work. As it can bring an overall sense of relaxation into our body, both emotional state and physical state. Go ahead and look forward and let's do salamander stretch. So without sliding the shoulders, just working on the range of the neck as you draw each ear. Same ear as the same shoulder. We'll let that go. It's great to be in that position because your body's just really being held still and you're isolating, which can be difficult when you're just trying to go into one part of your body. Extend the other side or prop, whatever you're comfortable with. Switching legs now. Same knee to same armpit, seeing what your lumbar is like. This might be too much extension for you. If you're right here, that's okay. We'll check out at the end of the workout to see if you've made some gains, elasticity gains on the lumbar after our workout. Okay, so you've got the height. Extend the knee to the point of shaking or perturbation, and then begin nerve flossing. Shaking perturbation is normal. You actually kind of want to see it, because then you're realizing I'm getting into some muscles that haven't been asked to be used this way, either in a stretching and or strengthening manner. And then I'm going to go for that, or maybe I'll just regress a little bit. I'll go for the beginner figure 4. We can deal with stiff hips. The higher your knee is, the more that hip is stiff. We just wait it out. And then I'll go into the progression. And then back to some vagal toning or alignment in the C1, C2. To just get that full body lengthening relaxation state. Inhale and exhale. And let's do an eyeball stretch. So part of the cranial nerves are optic nerves. And so just look forward, and then what you'll do without turning your head is just slowly take the eyes to one side and just stretch and hold. It's okay to blink. And notice if your head turned, you're just working the fiber optics. Now take your time and draw your eyes back slowly so you don't get dizzy. And then opposite side. We're doing toning, vagal toning, these 12 cranial nerves. Again, the fiber optics, smelling, speaking, tone, swallowing, taste, heart and stomach. Yeah, important stuff. Take your time, draw those eyes back, and come forward. Good. Breathe in, breathe out. A little bit of Tai Chi breathing. So taking the tongue, putting it on the back of the top of the teeth. You're going to just feel this full mouth exhale. You're going to make some strange sounds. And then just a little bit of humming, just a little bit of toning. How do you want your tone to sound, or how kind of tones do you want to hear today? Excellent. This stuff works. Gets us realigned, gets us into that parasympathetic rest and digest, away from that fight and flight that we constantly live in, the sympathetic nervous system. Excellent. Up out of the chair. And then so let's open up the shoulders and let's open up the hips a little bit more. Have the band nearby, a nice resistance band. And even your weights. I'll call that out later. We'll use that on the second half of strength training. So we're going to go wide and open the hips. You can have your chair in front if you need it. It's great to take away some of that body weight if you feel like your knees can't handle the 30% of your body weight, which is your belly button and above. And begin bending side to side. And getting your knees over your second and third toe. So if that's not happening, you need to rearrange your feet. And often a question is, where should my feet be pointed? It's more important that you listen to your knees. My knees need to be over my second and third toe, and then your feet will find their home once you address that. Then you can slowly work on width, right? Kind of go a little bit farther. Have I been doing this for a while? This is an intermediate. So we're trying to work on flexion as much as we can, but if we start to use the body weight, we're going to take it more into mobility. So since this is intermediate, I'm going to get away from the chair a little bit. And I'm going to go for a little bit more mobility. I want to add the strength here. great. So this is a good time to be able to use some simple yoga poses or yoga moves. So we're going to go into a warrior leg. So all I need to do is really pivot out one foot so I have this intersection. So I'm going to pivot out a foot, and then my back ankle should be intercepting the middle of the center of my opposite foot. Now what is it like when you go side to side, getting the knee of the second and third toe? Coming closer to the chair if you need a little bit more flexion time, coming farther away from the chair if you want a little bit more mobility, you want to add more strength. Opening up the hips, and I'm going to have that foot center forward, and I'm going to pivot my opposite foot. And same idea. I'm going to get my knee over my second and third toe. How much mobility can I take on here? Can you squeeze the glutes? What's that like for you when you're trying to squeeze there? Remember, you squeeze here, you stretch out the psoas or the hip flexors. And then have that foot face forward. Great. So I'm going to go for goddess squat. If you don't like the yoga poses, sorry, names of yoga, I have personal training background, so I'll give you a personal training word. Sumo squat. See what you can do here. Making sure you're watching out for any C curving. That's where your hands are really tight and they don't want to go down, so your back starts kind of contracting. Draw your abs in. Go low, use the chair. Knees over the second and third toe. You want to feel that little burn as in the muscles are really working, and then come out of it how you need to use that chair. Excellent job with that. Take your time. Bring the feet in slowly. Inhale and exhale. So simple on the hips there. Let's go into the chair really quick. Let's drop back into flexion. Let's say we're going to do something a little bit easier for the hips than what we just did. So out of the chair, off the body weight into the flexion. So what's it like for you with knee over the second and third toe, doing that same pose, that same sumo squat or goddess pose? Make sure there's no pain in here as you lean forward, looking over the ledge. So you can always draw your stomach muscles in a little bit to round out the back a little bit, so we don't do that C curve in the back. Great. You can hold this position. I'm going to find another way to open the hips. We're going to go into a 90-90 or shin box. So all I need to do is I need to pivot. So remember, I'm not going to twist, I'm not going to rotate. I'm just going to pivot. And just a little goes a long way. Just feel how your hips work with that pivot. And then come back up. And then pivot opposite side. It just opens and pulls the hip away a bit as you pivot. And you can go from pivoting to rotation. This is an excellent way to sit. We don't really get to in travel, just because of the way the seats in the airplane, the car, we don't get to have all this space. But if you're in a chair, you get the opportunity, you're out of the chair, try sitting wide. It's going to be better for your back. Okay, we'll go ahead, we'll do some shoulder. We'll go with the regression and the progression, right? For the hips, we went with the progression, the harder stuff and the easier stuff. For the shoulder, we'll go with the easier stuff and the harder. So hands close to the shoulders, let's start to draw circles. I'll go wider, that's going to be the theme. I know in Tai Chi, I see they kind of move their hands around their chest this way. That feels comfortable, go for it. And functional movement, it's more like your hands around the shoulder. Whatever feels natural for you. And even in Tai Chi, they change direction. You can change direction a bit. As long as you're feeling the squeeze between the shoulder blades, because that's what opens up the chest. So some basic mobility. Let's do a little bit more. What's it like when you take an item and you push it away? without rounding out the center of your back, but feeling your blades pull apart. Great. And so what's it like when you pull something and you feel your blades squeeze and your chest open without rounding out the center of your back? So spine is nice and neutral in all of this. We're just playing with the blades. We're getting some squeezing in the center of the back. We're getting some opening, but not rounding out in the center. This is a great way to pull something, leaving the elbows close to the body. This is a great way to push something. So when we come out is when we start to use the rotator cuffs a little bit too much. These are precarious thin muscles. They're really just designed to hold the shoulder in place so you can access larger muscles when you're pushing or pulling. Just stabilizers. But they're not there to do the main duty of a push or a pull. Great, let's come out of the chair. You go ahead and grab your band. So we'll take you to the progression, right? We're from flexion. I'm gonna come on the floor. You do not have to. Make that very, very clear. You do not have to come onto the floor. I am just doing it so you can actually see. I don't have my hands to the fan up above. So we went from the flexion. Now we're going to more mobility, right? We're adding the resistance with the flexion. So we've got the band. I want it to be tight and taut at all times. And see what you can do in terms of coming up overhead and even coming behind. So if you've never done this for the first time, I don't want you to just hit it all the way up and over. I want you to notice, like, how much can I pull? Is the band always tight or taut? It's one thing that we want. So you don't come down here and it's loose. It's tight or taut the whole time. Second thing I want you to notice is, are my elbows locked and strong? Or am I bending? If you're bending, the band might be too tight. What's great about the resistance band is you just pull a little bit down and then you've got the right amount. And it's tight or taut, elbows are locked, and then you work on the range. If you can't come all the way up and over, that's okay. We'll do a component where you're just coming behind. Go where you're at, through your strong elbows, where you can keep the band tight and taut. Go with where your range is. So if you're standing, make sure you go wide stance. I'm just going to keep calling it out during travelers exercises because those hips can hurt. There's those long walks and those long airplane rides. Excellent. I'm going to modify this a bit because I want everyone to have the benefit of having the chest open during this. So some of us can't come all the way and up and behind. So we want to have that moment where we get that behind. So I'm going to grab a band. Of course, I want it to be tight and taut at all times. So make sure that you're rolling your shoulders back. They like to play this little trick sometimes where they still slump forward and then you pull this way. So I want you to make sure you're rolling up and back and you're opening up your chest. You're standing, stand wide and squeeze your glutes. That will help protect your back. Pulling the band tight and taut. Begin to lift. So now you're working on your range here. And wherever the range is at is where it's at. This is more difficult than coming in front, right? You're doing a big muscle reversal. The chest is typically a tight muscle, so you're asking it to stretch, so it's having a little problem with that. And typically the center of the back is loose, and you're asking it to contract and strengthen, and it's having a little problem with that. Plus you've got triceps constantly contracted back there as long as your band is tight and you're pulling it. So it's a toughie, but it's a good one. Let's even hold it so you can squeeze your glutes. Doing all the good stuff that happens in a reverse plank, which is very difficult when you're down on the floor, on your palms, arms extended, or even if you're doing reverse tabletop. Really, really tough, lots of body weight. Here you're just managing what you want to work in this position. You've got corrective form, you're doing it. and release. Exercises like this are what improve our posture. Because again, it starts stretching out the tight stuff that pulls us forward and starts strengthening the loose stuff that has us go forward. All right, grab your water really quick. We're about to make that transition. We're going from length training into strength training. You will need a band and or weights, and you can go back and forth between the two. Okay, so what we have an assortment of moves. We're going with a theme, and that will be our first set. Looking today to see if we can always do that pelvic curl, if we can stay in a wide stance, and also, since this is intermediate, if there are times where we could add a transverse plane rotation or twist. So that's what will be different about today. We'll start with the lower body. I'll add in the upper. That becomes a total body move. Total body move means core. And we progress through these sets through this entire circuit. So let's go for the first one. Let's go for the theme, right? So the theme is, I want you to remember as much as you can today to stand wide as we go into our strength training. And how much can you squeeze your glutes? Wide, remembering the butt. And then also adding that very gentle rotation. Going to be limited because you're kind of listening to what your thoracic can do and same with your lumbar, right? You notice with the body, we get a lot more flexion as you come up the spine. Just do a neck roll. Lots of rotation, right? Come up, go to the thoracic region and rotate. A little less rotation. And the lumbar needs our most attention. It has the least amount of rotation in there, but is our stabilizer. It stabilizes. Think of a very strong cable, that's our spine, and lots of muscles accompanying that. That's how our lumbar works. It's like the big bridge or something. So that will be our theme. We'll be pulling in these moves. Want to remember to go wide. Want to remember when can we squeeze the glutes and when can I find a rotation in that move. There we go. So the first second or set is done. We move on to the next one. Grabbing the band or grabbing the weights, whatever you feel like working. I'm going to go low on the band. How the band works is it's very creative and functional. Depends on where we're anchoring it, right? Sometimes we anchor it overhead, sometimes beneath us. We can even tie it to a doorknob and work it that way. So going with the wide stance that I can, I'm going to start with the squat, keeping the band tight or taut the whole time, even when I'm low. Again, working into those glutes. And then seeing, can you have a rotation in here? You got resistance now. Just a little for the back. And that's all it needs. Squat, to glute squeeze, to a bit of rotation. Firm feet. Okay, I'm going to introduce the upper body move. So let's keep things going forward and back. So let's take out the range or the rotation. Keep the squat, keep the glute squeeze, and let's add a lift or a curl. So you have to do your pattern exactly like mine. I might be in this position and then be dropping or lowering something to the ground. I want you to play with it all. So we call this functional movement. You're just practicing going to exercise so you can do all the things you love. In this class, it's traveling, right? Being able to lift the things, the suitcase, whatever it is. Be an independent traveler. So we exercise to do the things that we love. Okay, so we're gonna add the rotation, right? You want the squat, the glute squeeze, want to feel that bicep. I want to add just a slight rotation. Without feeling like I'm off center, falling over to one side. Super functional because you might have to do this today. I just want to bring that in. Excellent. Okay, don't get rid of that band or get rid of the weights. So let's do one more here. So we're going to do a bent over row. So we're going to start going into the back to lift something. Before we came in the front, we used the biceps to lift something. So keeping the squat, keeping the glute squeeze. Don't forget about that. I'm going to add the bent over row. Go to the glutes. That's another way to pick something up. Or to lift something to the ground. And then we're going to add that intermediate, that flare, that twist. As I'm holding that item, I might need to rotate, feel your whole feet. Good. So we're not using the pivot, we're just using the rotation. It's going to be a little bit more limited because your feet are facing forward. So just honor that limitation. It's like, ooh, when I lift something this way, I do have some rotation, but it is limited until I turn those heels, right? Feel it out. Excellent. Come out of that. Breathe in, breathe out. Working our way through it. We're going to go into a lunge. So progressing, things get a little bit tougher. So if you don't like the word lunge, let me talk you into the word staggered stance. 1 foot forward, 1 foot back. We're not going tandem. We're going wide, even wider, since that's the theme and it's good for the hips. So we're going wide. Doesn't matter, right in front, left in front, whatever you want in this moment. So keep that band or keep the weights nearby. In fact, you go down to one weight on this and go through the movement, go through the step, go through the shift. Feel the glutes because that's still the theme, right? Soft knee, I don't want to have to crack out that knee or crunch that knee. Go into a little Tai Chi movement. I want to see if you're good here, if the balance is good. And then we'll try and progress you. So let's say that back knee can't take on a lot of weight. Can you do more of a single leg split squat using that front leg? Back knee is not bending. You're very aware of the front knee doing all the bending, all the heavy lifting. So it's a great alternative if you're good on that front knee and you're not good on that back knee. The lunge is when you think you can distribute the weight evenly between both legs. You're good on that knee, you're good on that knee. Things are equal. Whatever the case, go ahead, take your band and anchor. You can anchor overhead, you can anchor in front, but one arm is going to anchor and always be firm. So have that arm out, grab the band with the other and pull as you go through whatever leg movements you're going to do here. One arm is always anchoring as the other arm pulls. Pulls up, pulls down, pulls to the side, pulls in different areas. I can go a little bit higher. I'm a little worried about my fan right now. So you probably could go higher than me. And then I want to squeeze the glute, right? It's like, okay, I've got a wider staggered stance. Can I squeeze my butt? When can I feel that I'm using those glutes? And then we want to add that rotation. As you anchor, as you hold, even as you pull. Feet are face forward. And then come out of that, right? So that subtle rotation, just getting a little bit into the transverse plane on each side. Coming out of it, changing legs. Wide stance, expect different things for different reasons. So then you need to progress through. What's gonna work for me here? Single leg split squat this time. Or can I get the lunge going? All right, you're established on the lower. So take your opposite arm, the one you did not anchor with earlier. Have it be your anchor, strong elbow. Whether it's up to the side, it's gonna stay there, always strong elbow. The other arm is gonna be the one that pulls. Progress through your leg movements and through your pulling. You feel the rotation coming on, but we're not there yet. Shoulders a ball and socket joint. Boy, it has a lot of flexibility. It can go in a lot of places if you're lucky. So you're feeling it out. Low, behind, to the side. Strong anchor. Strong elbow on the opposite side. And now I am going to go into a rotation. What you have here with various leg movements in a rotation. And come out of it slowly. So you see the amount of body awareness we need while I start you out of the legs. Then I get you nice and stable and talk to you slowly, especially when I'm trying to talk you into a twist or a rotation. Grab your water. Going into the side lunge, so the weight's gonna become a little bit asymmetrical. A little bit off because we're gonna anchor on one side. 2 weights on this one, if you're using the weights. So we want to, of course, see how your leg is responding into that side lunge. You're finding a little bit more width. You over the second and third toe. We've got a little bit of a pull here. So as you come up, the quads have to work just a little bit harder. Okay, find where you're good. Let's make sure. Okay, you got the wide stance check. Can you go into a glute squeeze? A little bit different when it's wider, right? Feel a little bit more of the gluteus minimus, gluteus medius, the outer glutes, more on the outside of the hips, right? Okay, we've got that. So we're gonna start with the upper body move. Let's keep the elbows hinged and go into what's called shoulder shapers. So as you're coming out, you should feel your blades squeeze together. We're using the bicep. It's not as tough on the core. You're just using like half the arm extension. So let's try rotation here. Everything behaving, right? Just because you're doing a little bit of rotation, just because you're taking that item and you're turning a little bit to one side, and even a little bit to the other side, watch out for that knee. Okay, I'm gonna progress the arm movement. I wanna feel more core, which means my arm needs to get farther away. I'm gonna take off some ounces on the band. And I'm gonna come out and bend the knee, even out to the sides. Keeping things pretty symmetrical because I've got this asymmetrical off pull because I'm standing on the band. This is when you decide to lift something and you're sort of shifting in your lift. You're using one side of the body on the lift. Okay, can we still feel the glutes? All right, go through the checklist. Wide, feeling the glutes, yeah. Okay, could I add a rotation in here somehow? Ooh, yeah. Take your time. We find it in different ways. And in different moments. A little goes a long way on that, right? Not looking for a ton of rotation there. In the advanced, we'll probably hold it, hold the rotation and do 10-second hold on that, right? This is the progression. Opposite side. Go wide. How's the knee looking? How's the knee feeling? Got a little extra weight with that band. Then we go into the bicep. Curl the shoulder shaper, feeling the blades. And I want to experiment with a bit of rotation. Should feel the hip opening. Right, okay, if we are the Bay Bridge, and our lumbar back is that strong cable, not the cable, but it's that strong piece of iron, and it's associated muscles that are the cables, right? The Bay Bridge isn't gonna super twist, that would be crazy, but it is gonna give a little to side, and so that's all we're looking for. Looking for that little bit of that give for those cables to allow us to have some elasticity. But I'm not gonna fight for too much there. Okay, I'm gonna go more for core. I'm gonna drop down the weight because I wanna come out more. Share of it, there we go. Lot going on here, asymmetrical move, you feel the pull. Make sure the knee is in position. You're feeling strong before we try and do this progression of a rotation. Feel the hip opening up, squeeze your butt. Knee should be affected just because you're rotating over in that direction. Should still know its place. Come out of it. Again, a little goes a long way on that. Woo! So with the intermediate versus advanced or versus the beginner, I notice that there's a lot more of that twisty playing happening throughout the sets. Usually we save it towards the end. We are towards the end. And it's more rotation, but you know, we're a little bit more ready for it. We've done a lot of it. So I'm gonna do an alternating twist and press. I'm gonna need to come down for this and work with my knees. I don't recommend that you coming down. I just want you to be able to see, like, what is this gonna look like? Okay. On your feet, prepare for rotation. So like, okay, I don't have to twist my spine. I just have to kind of rotate my feet on this. Band or weights. Give the pull up overhead. Good. And you're just gonna turn. So we're gonna feel some minor rotation. See how I'm kind of moving my knee because I'm working with the pivot. But then I'm gonna go with just a little bit of rotation. But I'm orientating myself through the pivot. If you can't go overhead with this, find where you can go with this and give a little bit of pull, and you'll feel the same sort of rotation in the spine. Second move, overhead side bend. Ooh, this is a toughie, right? So we're asking one side bilateral of the body to contract and the other side to strengthen. So it's a little odd, and we're talking about some tight muscles, overused muscles too. So we want to be careful as we start leaning into the side. Up overhead. Strong elbows. Pull your object, hold your object, your suitcase, whatever it is, firm. And you're gonna lean over to one side. Strong elbows. And then come all the way up, right? All this matters, your entire unit matters. Opposite side when you're lifting something. So there's a locked elbows. We need that. You need that to hold that object up. It's not always so much the strength in your arms that's holding the object up. It's how you're locking your elbows and how you're using your core. You're always using your core. Just think of your arms and legs as just extensions of your core. Just like little kickstands or just little objects that you can use, but you're always using your core in your movements. Overhead squat. This is a toughie, but it's needed. You got your suitcase, you're putting it up above. You realize it's almost in there, but in the compartment, but you just need to push a little bit harder for it to go there. So watching out for my fan. I have to go pretty low. You don't have to go as low as I'm going on this. Here you are, like there's the object, right? Okay, got knee over second, third toe, I'm going wide. Remember that you have a squeeze on this. Push your object up, squeeze your glutes. Push the object up, squeeze your glutes. I could go a little bit higher, but I'm gonna knock my knuckles. Squeeze your glutes. Just need a little bit more quad power, a little bit more glute power. Nice strong elbows to just push that suitcase in. It's not your arms that are doing it, it's your legs and how you're holding your core that's getting that suitcase up and pushing it up. Excellent on that. Okay, we're gonna come back into the chair. We're gonna take a little turn into cooling down a bit. Intermediate, a little bit harder than the beginner of traveler's exercises. And of course, we have the advanced coming up. Breathe in and out. And let's go through our 3 traveler's exercises and see, like, there's so much lumbar work, especially in the transverse plane. See how you feel now, bringing same knee up to same armpit. Does it feel better? And extend out and do a little bit of nerve flossing. We'll hit it a second time. And in fact, we can also work the neck with that. So drawing the chin down and drawing it up. You got nerves throughout your entire body. We don't stretch our nerves, we floss our nerves. And then into figure 4. We want to take a minute, a whole minute here. And so we'll go into the neck and see how do we feel realignment happening in the C1, the C2, and the cervical neck. Like, can we get a larger range? Like, that's what we're looking for. So if we do the neck roll, the Pilates neck roll, dropping the jaw, dropping the tongue. It's like a little bit more flexibility in there. So hip dropping down, so opening up for you. Then we'll extend out of that. We'll go to the opposite side, line up with that salamander stretch. Same knee to same armpit. That feeling looser, easier for you to get up. Extend out and floss, and then go ahead with the neck as well. Give you 2 different beats, or on the same beat. And then dropping into figure 4. Allowing those breaths, taking the Tai Chi breath. See it feeling settled, centered into the chair instead of off on one side. We'll go into the neck roll. So same ears, same shoulders. It's a Feldenkrais move. It's also vagal toning, calming nerves, opening them up, giving them room for us to receive messages from some important parts of our body. See, more releasing, more relaxing comes in. That's usually what happens when we pause and we just take notice, we become observers and not continue to activate and jump on the wheel of reaction. So used to. What's so used to is not us, It's this thing, the brain, the roommate up there that's used to it. Breathe in and out, take some deep breaths. Go a little bit wider. Final move here. Wide stance, go into a glute squeeze just to signify the end of our traveler's exercises, remembering to stand wide, remembering to use those glutes. Up and out we go. It's a bit of a squeeze. Excellent job, everyone. Hope to see you soon, and check out the advanced traveler's exercise functional movement class.